Babies are really stupid,
I would
But-
agree with you. Yeah.
but they're also really smart in a lot of ways.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to talk about that today, and we're going to focus on how they're stupid.
Okay. All right.
Welcome to Psych Papers, a podcast
Welcome.
of bad content where we discuss controversial and interesting psychology studies and concepts. My name is Chris Cole. I have a PhD in psychology, and this is my co-host, Joseph Tajaran.
Oh, and I'm his friend.
In today's episode, we're going to cover my 3 favorite developmental psych concepts: object permanence, theory of mind, and conservation. So Jean Piaget was the psychologist that proposed different stages of infants' development and kind of coined a lot of these terms, but we're not going to get into all of that. We're just going to discuss the concepts. So object permanence refers to the understanding that objects continue to exist even when they are no longer visible, and babies do not possess this. If an infant is under about 7 months old and cannot see an object, they actually think it no longer exists anymore. Before they develop object permanence, which can happen between 7 and 12 months, when an object is hidden from a baby's view, they'll act as if that object no longer exists. Psychologists can test for object permanence with the A, not B task. The A, not B task involves hiding a desirable object, like a colorful toy, at location A, like under a cloth. So they'll put a toy under a cloth, and then they'll say, "Where's the toy?" And the baby will pull the cloth off. And they'll kind of train the baby to do this, to kind of interact with the toy this way. They'll do this several times until the baby learns that the object is at location A. And then the experimenter will, in full view of the baby, hide it at a new location B under another cloth. And these two cloths are like right next to each other. If the baby still looks for the toy at location A, this indicates the baby has not developed object permanence yet. This task assesses the baby's ability to maintain a representation of an object in their mind and track hidden objects.
Did you say already when babies do get object permanence?
Most babies develop it around 7 to 8 months old, but this is like
Okay.
a fuzzy range, and it can depend on the baby.
Right, because different babies, I think, I don't know a lot about child development, but I think every kid like sort of develops like slightly different from each other. Right?
Yeah, there's like a general timeline, and there's like milestones, and that's why all of these milestones come within like ranges. So they'll develop this from like 11 to 12 months, or they'll develop this from like 1 to 2 years old.
If I could choose a lot of things in my life to keep and not lose, that's like a very important thing to have. Can you imagine just going in your life just like, yo, where'd you go, dog? I guess. Wait,
Yo.
did I have? Was Chris ever my friend? Was there ever a Chris?
Who's Chris?
That's incredibly scary, actually. Now I think about it, just like because it's like a, I don't know, I don't fully understand dementia, but that's what it seems like to me.
Oh goddamn!
It's like like one moment we have capacity to understand that something exists, and the next moment you don't.
Yeah, it can be really scary.
Yeah.
So it develops around like 7 to 8 months old. And playing games like peekaboo with your baby can actually help them develop object permanence because you're showing them that objects still exist even when not in view. That's why babies like love it, because it's like, it's fucking crazy.
Holy shit, Dad, you're still there? Whoa. Ah, shit.
Oh, you still exist. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God.
Oh, Jesus.
Object permanence is considered like a crucial milestone in cognitive development because it signifies a child's growing ability to mentally represent and manipulate objects in their mind. The ability to represent objects in your mind is extremely important because it allows us to hold different representations of objects and people in our mind. One important aspect of this is our ability to represent another person's mind in our own mind. Basically, can you take another person's perspective? Theory of mind in developmental psychology refers to an individual's ability to understand that others have thoughts, beliefs, desires, and intentions that may differ from their own. Basically, to understand another person may have a different perspective than your own. This typically develops by the age of around 4 to 5 years old. Theory of mind, whether a child can take on another person's perspective,
Uh-huh.
can be tested with the false belief task. In the false belief task, I would show a 3-year-old a box of crayons. I would ask, "What do you think is in this box?" They would say, "Crayons."
Uh-huh.
Then I show them that inside the box are actually candles. Then I ask the child, "When I first showed you the box, what did you think was in them?" And they'll say that they always knew there were candles in the box
Mm.
because they can't create another perspective of even themselves from the past. They can't imagine, well, when I first saw the box 5 minutes ago, I thought there were crayons. So they think, no, I always knew there were candles in the box. Then I can bring in another person. Let's say Snoopy. So let's say Snoopy walks into the room that we're in. They've never seen this box before, and they've never seen us open it up. I
Mm-hmm.
ask the child, "What do you think Snoopy thinks is inside the box?" They'll say candles.
Mm-hmm.
This is a child who hasn't yet developed a theory of mind.
Mm. They don't
In
know
their
what they
mind,
can't see things through Snoopy's lens.
exactly, or
Yeah.
anybody else's lens, even their own lens from like 5 minutes ago. They only see what's currently in front of them. In their mind, everybody sees the world the way they do. There's no difference between what they think and what everybody else thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Theory of mind is crucial when it comes to predicting other people's behaviors, empathizing with them, and engaging in complex social interactions. This contributes to why young children are terrible liars, because to lie, you have to understand what another person wants to hear
Mm-hmm.
and intentionally deviate from that. Children don't understand that others have different beliefs and desires from them. Being able to take somebody else's perspective seems like a complex cognitive process, which is what makes it so surprising that physical properties of objects, like how much water is in a glass,
Mm-hmm.
can be even more complex to understand. The concept of conservation in developmental psychology refers to a child's ability to understand that certain physical properties of objects remain the same even when their appearances change. For example, if I have a glass of water and then I pour that into a taller glass, the amount of water has stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
But a child younger than roughly 7 to 11 years old will believe that there is now more water in the taller glass because of the shape of the glass. Conservation is tested with the conservation task. Another example is if I have 5 quarters and I lay them out on a table in a line, each quarter 1 inch apart from the next, and then I lay out another line of quarters, another line of 5 quarters, each with an inch apart between them. Um, if I ask a child which line has more quarters, they'll say each line has the same amount of quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I take one of the lines of quarters and I double the amount of space in between them, so now I just spread them apart, so now there's 2 inches in between each quarter, the child will now say that the line has more quarters in it because they think if the quarters take up more space, then there's more quarters. There are types of conservation. Children will focus on like a single salient dimension of height or length and ignore other important attributes of an object. The different types of conservation are like conservation of volume or like liquid, like we talked about, conservation of numbers, like quarters, conservation of a solid quantity, which involves stretching lumps of clay into different shapes, and children miscalculating quantities of clay. So you have 2 lumps of clay. When they're the same shape, oh yeah, that's the same amount of clay. If I stretch, if I like spread out one of the lumps of clay and I say which one has more clay now, the children will miscalculate that and say, oh, the one that takes up more space has more clay in it.
Mm.
There's conservation of weight and mass, which involves putting 2 equal amounts of clay on opposite sides of a scale, showing how they're the same weight. And then if you change the shape of one lump of clay to make it look bigger, the child will say, even though they can see the scale that it weighs the same, they'll say, oh, the clay that takes up more space weighs more. And different types of conservation develop at different ages. So conservation of numbers develops from ages 6 to 8. Conservation of mass and length occurs around age 7. Conservation of weight at around age 9. And conservation of volume around age 11.
Wow, that's late.
It's incredibly late.
Yeah.
To be that dumb. Come on.
Dude, you don't know. You don't have the idea of like how much volume is? Come on.
You already got your theory of mind and your object permanence. Like,
use that to your advantage, you fucking moron.
It's that one is shockingly late. This reminds me of an old kind of classic Blondes joke back when those were still a thing. And it's about they call up a pizza shop to order a medium pizza, and then the person on the phone goes, "Okay, we have medium pizza. We could cut that into 6 or 8 slices. Which do you want?" And they go, "Oh, I'm feeling extra hungry. Cut it into 8 slices."
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
God, I feel like a moron.
That's conservation, baby. I used to work in a developmental lab where we had infants come into the lab with their parents, and we would run them through like a battery of developmental tests. So the A not B task was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And basically we started from a developmental task from like, things that you should know when you're like a young child, like 6 months. I think that was the youngest we went, all the way up to like things that only like a 3-year-old can pick up. And we would run them in like this testing room. So we had a bunch of toys, and each one would correspond with like a certain task that they had to pass or fail. And then if they kept passing, we would keep going on to the next task. And once they failed, we were like, okay, that's, they've reached that milestone. Or no, I think we would run them through all of them and just see their failure rate. Yeah. But it was always so funny because the parents would be in the room with us, and the parents are so invested in their child, obviously. And so they want to make sure that their kid passes the test. And the tests are like, the tests are very like simple. It's hard for like a parent to watch their kid fail at like, I show the kid, I'm like, hey, look, do you see the airplane? I put it under a piece of cloth, and I'm like, where'd the airplane go? And the kid's like, and they're like picking up other shit.
You can see like a dad in the dark, like, you idiot! That's right there! We went over this! We did this exercise earlier! You had it earlier!
We practiced in the morning! We always had to tell the parents, being like, we know you're going to want to get involved, and we know you're going to want to help your child. Please don't.
Please don't. You fucking ruin our research.
Yeah, you're ruining our study. We know you know where the toy is. We want to see if your kid knows where the toy is.
Yeah, you're not me study here. That's hilarious. It's like parents watching their kids like play a competitive game of basketball.
Yeah,
like softball.
Yep. And obviously, and this is even like more high stakes because it's like this is determining at what developmental stage has your child reached. Like, what milestone are they at? Are they within normal development? Are they early developers? Are they late developers? That was a little rougher. And parents would always want to be like, so how'd he do?
That's not the point.
and we'd be like, we don't know. We haven't looked at the data yet. A lot of these tasks are simple. A lot of them are really hard. We're not here to like evaluate. Here's your $20. Thank you.
Here's your Visa gift card for a bowl of soup.
Yeah.
Oh man, to be the parents to see their kid just fail every test, and then you return the kid back rough. To the parents. That did happen. You see parents like disheveled, like, our kids
we're gonna practice this later.
Honey, you memorized all the exercises, right?
And some of them were interesting, like let me try to remember. Like, one of them was like, does your child understand the concept of one? So we would have like 4 little small red blocks in our hand, and we'd be like, hey, Jimmy, like, take one from my hand. And sometimes if they knew what the concept of one meant, they would take one. Or a lot of times they would just grab the whole stack of blocks.
Duh, everything.
Blocks. Yeah.
Mine now.
One for all. All for one. And it was a lot of tasks being like, does your child understand like kind of cause and effect? Like we would have two toys like interacting with each other. Like one involved like a little catapult, and you had to catapult the thing. And we were like, okay, does the child understand that you need to put the little ball in the bowl and then pull the thing back? It was called the Bailey's task, if any listeners are wondering. And it was always a ton of fun. That was like the highlight of my day because that was so fun to like
To
run kids through that test.
Yeah. That'd be like compliant
Yeah.
participants, and they're genuinely
And
not trying. They're doing it very earnestly too. You don't have participants like
Yeah.
overthinking
I mean, because
it or
we
or
have
not.
to run
Yeah,
this task under the guise of playtime.
yeah,
Like we're pretending that we're just playing,
yeah.
but we're really trying to like
You're
run this task.
studying.
And we have a clipboard.
You were
Yeah.
studying them.
And we would give the parents like a magazine and be like, hey, just can you please pretend to read it? And you'd see them like pretend, not even pretending to read it, but just like hunched over with the magazine, like, come on, Jimmy, come on, it's under the cloth.
That's
And we're
so
like,
annoying.
please don't. Yeah.
And
we're like, we're going to have to disqualify your child if you know.
So they either lose or they don't even get to be mentioned in our research.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's how
Yeah.
could be, you could have done a side study with the parents as they're doing that. Just do a study to see if
Oh,
which
that would have
parents
been
are
so awesome.
like
Yeah.
they is a study within a study.
Yeah.
Yo, dude. I don't this is gonna sound really ignorant and shit, but I assume these studies have been ran before, hence why you're running them again in this lab.
Yep. It's a standardized test.
What's the is it are these like pre-tests you do to the like to the research that you want to, the new research that you're trying to evaluate or figure out?
So we take an already standardized test. It's already been, which means when I say it's been standardized, it's mean this test has already been run on like a number of children, and they've determined, okay, this test is, each of these tasks are good predictors of cognitive or developmental milestones. And then we use that in our study because we were a language lab. We were trying to see like, how is the language development of each child going? Are they like an early talker, normal, or late talker? And we needed to add a covariate of developmental progress just to see like, okay, how does their developmental progress potentially interact with their language development?
Okay, so what I'm learning here, Chris, that babies don't know shit. So stop acting like you know everything. Stop acting like you know.
You know smug babies. Hey babies, get off your high horses and back in your high chair, bitch.
Nice. Step down on me. Step down. I think what I'm getting here is that, so baby, the whole point of being a baby, right? If I were to sum up this episode, it's got, you gotta know where things are. You gotta have a sense of like that things exist, and that if they leave, they can come back, and they don't lose existence because they're not there.
To sum up, we discussed object permanence, which is knowing that objects still exist despite not being able to see them. We discussed theory of mind, which is understanding that others can have different perspectives from you. And we discussed conservation, which is knowing that certain physical properties remain the same even when appearances change. So, babies are stupid.
Yeah,
but
I think that's biggest takeaway.
Maybe we'll do an episode on how babies are smart. Otherwise, if you're still listening, thank you so much for watching or listening. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Bye.